Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're looking at something, well, pretty surprising about infidelity.
Yeah, it's definitely not the usual story you hear.
Right. We tend to think cheating equals, getting out,
Yeah.
a prelude to divorce.
The end of the relationship.
Exactly. But we're diving into some fascinating research that suggests for certain women, having an affair is actually a strategy to stay in their marriage.
It sounds really counterintuitive, I know.
Yeah.
But we're looking at an article from Psychology Today. It's called Why Some Women Cheat Not to Leave, but to Stay.
And it's by Dr. Alicia M. a sociologist.
That's right. She specializes in intimate relationships, and her work here, based on interviews with women, it really challenges those standard assumptions about why people cheat.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because like you said, the narrative is always affair equals betrayal, equals 1 foot out the door.
Right, heading for the exit.
It's seen as this massive bomb dropped on the relationship. But Dr. Walker's research focuses on women who are actively trying to remain married, and the affair is somehow part of that.
Yeah, it flips the script. And just to be really clear from the outset, this isn't about saying infidelity is okay or endorsing it.
No, not at all.
It's about exploring the complexity. Why does this happen? What are the motivations when it's not about leaving?
So what does Dr. Walker call this phenomenon? There's a term for it, right?
Yes, she calls it the infidelity workaround.
Workaround, okay.
It's basically described as a kind of last resort for women who often feel, well, trapped, maybe in sexless marriages or relationships where certain needs are deeply unmet.
And crucially, where communication has already failed. They've tried talking.
That's a key point.
Yeah.
They've often tried to address the issues, initiate conversations, seek solutions within the marriage, but nothing has changed.
So this isn't their first option.
Not according to this research, no. And these aren't women who secretly want out. The findings suggest they often really value their spouse, their family.
Their life together? They don't want to, as the article says, blow up their lives.
Precisely. They feel stuck between wanting to preserve the family unit and having these fundamental needs unmet. The affair becomes a way to navigate that tension, or so the thinking goes.
It sounds incredibly strategic.
It often is. The research highlights how managed these affairs can be. They're not typically about finding a grand romance or a soulmate replacement.
It's more functional.
You could say that. It's about addressing specific unmet needs, often sexual needs, that they feel are missing at home. It's quite pragmatic, actually.
Okay, let's talk about those needs, because the article touches on monogamy and female desire in a way that might surprise people.
Right. It questions the sort of gold standard assumption about monogamy working perfectly for everyone, always.
And it mentions research suggesting that over the long haul, it's often women's sexual desire that decreases more significantly than men's within the relationship.
Yeah, which kind of flips the common script again, doesn't it?
It does. And it's not necessarily about, inherent libido differences across the board.
No, the article points to factors like, well, familiarity, routine, the mental load of running a household, kids, all that stuff.
The daily grind.
Exactly. It can all contribute to desire waning within that specific relationship.
So these women might find themselves in what you could call unintentionally sexless marriages. They didn't plan it, maybe didn't even see it coming.
Correct. And they've tried to talk about it, maybe tried to initiate, but the spark, for whatever reason, isn't there anymore with their partner.
But here's the twist.
Yeah, the research notes this interesting thing. While desire for their husband might have faded, these women often find their sexual interest. Well, it comes back when something new enters the picture.
So it's not that they've lost their desire for sex altogether.
Not at all. It suggests the desire is still there, just not being activated within the marriage.
And the research really makes a distinction here, doesn't it? It's not primarily about seeking emotional connection.
That's a key finding. For many of these women, the main driver is physical intimacy, orgasms specifically.
There's that really blunt quote in the article.
Oh, yeah. The one woman who says something like, look, this guy gives me orgasms, but he's not even in the same league as my husband.
Right. And if my husband didn't have ED, these guys wouldn't stand a chance.
It's incredibly candid, and it highlights that pragmatic view.
It really does. So the affair partner isn't seen as a potential replacement spouse.
Generally, no. It's about filling a specific gap. The research suggests these women often feel better equipped to handle their marriage after the affair.
How so?
They report feeling more patient at home, more engaged, maybe even more affectionate towards their husband, because that underlying frustration or resentment about the lack of intimacy has been, well, eased.
So the affair, paradoxically, reduces tension within the marriage for them.
That's what they report, yes. It allows them to stay without that constant buildup.
And they're not looking for the one out there?
Yeah. Dr. Walker uses the term Mr. Now and Then.
Mr. Now and Then.
Yeah. There's often a very conscious effort to keep emotions out of it, to avoid romantic entanglement that could threaten the marriage they want to preserve.
Which ties back to that idea of it being very managed, very strategic.
Absolutely. That pragmatism extends to the logistics. Clear rules, clear boundaries, keep it separate.
And what about the finding about some women having multiple partners? The roster?
Ah, yes. The roster or herd. That sounds jarring, I know.
It does.
But the reasoning presented isn't about, like, rampant desire. It's framed almost as a risk management strategy.
Like a lesson learned from the marriage itself.
Kind of. The idea being, if depending on one person their husband didn't meet all their needs, why expect one affair partner to be perfectly reliable either?
Wow. So the quote was something like, why would I expect one affair partner to meet all my needs when my husband couldn't?
Exactly that. It's presented as a practical backup system. Managing logistics, not juggling deep emotional relationships.
It's almost like a business approach to fulfilling a personal need. Startling.
It is. And it forces us, I think, to look at the assumptions we make about relationships.
Like monogamy being the only way.
Well, questioning if it's inherently fulfilling for everyone throughout a very long-term relationship. Yeah. And it raises questions about communication.
You mean the conversations we don't have?
Precisely. The article points out how rarely couples discuss sexual expectations and needs before marriage, or even revisit them seriously later on.
We plan the wedding down to the napkins, but not the sexual future of the marriage.
It's a bit sobering, isn't it? We assume desire will just stay constant.
Which the research clearly shows isn't always the case, especially, it seems, for women in these long relationships.
Right. We expect finances to change, careers, parenting. Why wouldn't sexual needs and dynamics also evolve over decades?
And that standard advice, just talk to your partner?
It falls short, doesn't it? If you've tried talking and you feel consistently unheard or nothing changes, then what?
Yeah, the problem isn't necessarily the lack of talking, but the lack of resolution or being truly heard.
Exactly. And the article highlights that we don't really have good, openly discussed, realistic options for couples when their sexual needs just diverge significantly over time.
There's no societal script for that beyond suck it up or get divorced.
Pretty much. Which is why this research shifts the focus. Instead of just jumping to moral judgment,
Condemning the affair.
it pushes us to ask, what unmet needs are driving this? What's going on within the marriage?
It's about understanding the why behind it, not just the what.
And that leads to the really big question Dr. Walker's work leaves us with. How can marriages adapt and evolve to meet both partners' needs, including sexual needs, before someone feels the need to look elsewhere?
Okay, so wrapping this up, the key takeaway from this deep dive into Dr. Walker's research is pretty radical. For some women, infidelity isn't the exit ramp we assume it is.
No, it can be this really complex, sometimes pragmatic strategy they employ to actually stay in a marriage, specifically when core needs, often sexual, aren't being met and other solutions have failed.
It's about coping and remaining, not leaving.
That's the core finding, yes.
Which leaves us, and you, with a final thought to chew on.
Yeah, think about this. If some affairs happen for these very pragmatic, need-filling reasons, what does that reveal about our expectations for long-term relationships?
What unspoken realities are simmering beneath the surface?
And maybe most importantly, how crucial is that ongoing, truly open communication? Not just talking, but really listening, adapting to each other's evolving needs throughout the entire life of a marriage.
Something to definitely think about.